Hello, Barry.
Morning.
Is Boston still at 50?
In temperature,
Yes.
36. It's
Computer
sunny,
temperature.
clear, and 36.
Oh, forgot to plug it by Alexa again.
Oh,
I usually unplug it when I leave so it doesn't bother Gail.
oh.
It's actually a nice warm 21 degrees right now.
Well, there you go.
The high today at 4 p.m. will get to 31.
Yesterday, it got up to 57 degrees in the early afternoon.
Good morning.
Morning. How was your presentation yesterday?
It was great. You talk about mindset for health and how important is health, and some people don't quite get it. So I came up with a phrase. I say to my body, without you, I'm nobody.
Right. Well, that was what the ghost saying. I ain't got no body. So should I get Medicare supplemental? I don't have supplemental. My brother thinks I should get supplemental.
Well, when you get it, it's better that you don't have it. It's a choice. So every case is different. And when you have more choices, you get to choose. If you don't have the choice, you don't get to choose.
I also don't have Part D.
Get it. It's free. That's part of your benefit. And Congress had to work very hard to approve that,
Part D is not free, and it's got a big deductible.
Again, free in the sense that if you don't use it, it's free. If you use it, you got deductible. That's a choice. So between the free and the choice, you better have better choice, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Again, it's a case-by-case analysis. I cannot tell you what it is, but in most cases, the way I think about it, when somebody create a product, right? I don't care if it's a pen or whatever, they put a lot of thoughts into it and they have to create it, and it has to be useful in some way. Otherwise, that product or that item will not be created. That's what they call their benefits.
Well, I mean, insurance is about reducing your fear of having a big loss that you can't handle.
Well, that's maybe true now that we have AI tools. Once you ask ChatGPT 4.0 and see, is that, part D is useful? How is that useful? When is it not useful? Its answer is really in your face, it's easy.
Oh, by the way, Zoom sent me a request to answer a survey about AI, Zoom AI, and I didn't take up on it because I haven't actually used it myself, but some of you guys have.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Well, then you should take up the survey because I had nothing to say.
I didn't get an email, so I'm not smart enough for them to send an email.
I could send you the email.
You have seen the summaries that it produces.
Yeah. I use it as, I think to me, again, it's a choice. It's a tool. It's a option. And I love it. I really love it. Go request a summary with you, Sam. Approve it and you're good to go.
Reading summary with AI companion is on.
Yeah. I've been using it for my guild meetings that, I'm a secretary right now. So that saved me you have no idea, summarize a meeting is a pain in the butt for me. I spent at least 5 to 7 hours to summarize a meeting.
Maybe I can ask it to summarize the international court. They'd had something like 6 or 7 hours of presentations.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask them to summarize the press.
Oh, by the way, there's also now the GDP they set up now. You can have summarized using the bare bone version as well as somebody else created, a chat GDP options that you can use as well. So, you know what I'm talking about?
Not really, no.
Okay, so they have something called, think of like the App Store, like in the Apple Store, you have a platform called Apple App Store, right? So now you have apps in it. So now they have apps in the ChatGPT platform now.
They have apps in the Chat GPT platform?
Yeah, they're not called app, they're called GGP. Believe it or not, it's crazy. The terminology drives me nuts.
Here's what I don't get. Why do I get promotions to download the app when I'm on a desktop computer?
Well, because it's more useful. Most people do that. I use it all the time.
But you got to be on a smartphone to use an app.
Yeah, it's on your phone, on your iOS phone.
Yeah, but if I'm on my desktop, why are they telling me to download the app now?
When you're in your caboose, when you are when you're somewhere that you're not convenient. I mean, I use it all the time. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
I got friends that from China ask me some question, and I go in and use it right away and then put it back on your WeChat. It's like piece of cake. I don't have to turn on my computer. I mean, I don't have to sit in front of the computer. I'm free to do whatever I want wherever I am. And that's what the power of apps is. By the way, the AI pin, there's a second product out there now. I just saw it yesterday. It's called Rabbit 2.
AI pin is something you wear?
Yeah, AI pin is something you wear that you have a camera and you can talk to it. It's $6.99 and I don't remember, like $30 a month or $25 or $28 a month, something like I don't have
$700? That's expensive.
Again, it's for you, it's expensive. For me, it's R&D that I need to know so that I can see what it does and what it cannot do, whether it's useful for me or not. Think of me as a carpenter that if somebody invented a new saw, a new hammer, I have to explore it. I don't have a choice.
Nice.
Because otherwise my competition will be more efficient than me by 2% and I'll go out of business because I'm 36% less efficient than him in a year from now.
I see.
So it's a tool evaluation. I call it R&D, and my office, accounting lady, they know it's like Sam's R&D.
You guys remember the Star Trek shows? They used to have this little
Pin.
Star Trek pin. You tap on it,
Yeah.
you talk to the computer. Yeah.
Sam Han, turn up your mic volume a little bit.
Testing, testing, testing. Is this better?
I need a comparison. Sam Chan, say something.
I'm saying
Testing.
something right now.
Okay, this is almost max. Testing, testing, testing.
Yeah.
This is my max.
Yeah, your levels are close now.
Okay. Previously, when I set it at max, it would come across with a lot of static. So I've been trying to be careful not to do it at maximum.
Yeah.
A lot of distortion, I mean.
Guess what? Zoom, I can send a picture now.
You send a picture?
Wait,
Is
you
that a
can
new
paste the
thing?
picture into chat?
Yeah, I found
Nice.
it out. I found it out yesterday on Friday. I was having a Zoom call with somebody. It's like they sent a picture. I say, "Don't you need to use like?"
That's useful.
I'm not kidding
Oh,
you.
that's a new feature.
Yes, that's
That's a-
good.
See what I'm saying? It's like you have to be exploring mode be open-minded for any new tools or new features that showed up.
Is it just copy and paste of a picture?
Looks
The
like
way
it.
I did it is I do for me it's option Window Shift S so I can capture a small part of the window I want to capture, and then I go into edit and put a right arrow in there, and then I can paste it. It's a 3-step for me to do that picture.
Oh,
But for
okay.
you can capture something, you don't have to be editing it, You can do a print screen. And send the whole print screen over. Anyway, the key is that you can now send a picture over the chat instead of pure text.
Well, that's nice to know.
Yeah, really important. Again, I've been waiting for that feature for a long time.
Many years.
Team can do it, Skype can do it. Pretty much everybody can do it except Zoom. So like,
So I just sent you, for example, a summary of how many views some of our posts have been getting. So some are at 32, 38, 22 views.
Oh, I see it's on the right. It's the number.
Yeah.
yeah. The question I have is how far they have watched it. Did they watch it the whole way or the first 3 seconds?
Yeah, I could send those analytics as well.
And do they read the summary or do they,
Oh,
download?
are they getting any comments added?
They are. Some of them are.
Are the comments worth considering, or are they just random?
Okay, so for example, December 10th, 2 comments. Okay, so not many. That's the only one in the last month or two that's gotten any comments. August 6th, 1 comment.
Well, you're looking at the number of comments, not the actual text of them.
That's right. But they're also getting likes. The December 10th got 1 like. On November 26th got 1 like.
What's their number one fear?
What's
Was that an incomplete question?
No, I was playing the video and I had to stop it. So
Was that my voice? What's the number one fear?
Yeah, that was your voice on the December 10th. Anyway, so the link, let me send you that's the last comment. I'm gonna copy and paste it.
Just copy and paste the comment.
I'm trying to be complete as much as I can. Okay, right here.
Uh-huh.
Add link +2, 3 weeks ago, edited. The chap with the listening disability.
Well, I haven't listened. That would be me. I know something about the nature of time. In fact, what I said is not what he recited to the group. It is in the Zoom recording where I mentioned. Wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. Is it links links +2? That's
Alex.
name. That's Alex.
Yeah.
But Alex wasn't here 3 weeks ago.
No, so he must have listened to the recording and then commented.
In fact, what I said where? What's their number one fear?
What's the number one fear of day traders?
I'm asking you. I don't know.
Okay, so I'll review it to you. Anyway,
This doesn't make sense. If Alex refers to something he said,
okay, read it again one more time. Try to
the chap with the listening disability, which is me, thinks I, meaning Alex, knows something about the nature of time. In fact, what Alex, said is not what he, Barry, recited to the group. It is in the Zoom recording where I mentioned time was relative to the position and speed of the observer. What recording is he referring to? Clocks at varying distances do not appear to click at the same rate because of this. There, possessive there, is absolutely no plausible hypothesis because it is nullified by the lab observations. I could be wrong, however, reply. Well, I don't know if you're right or wrong. I couldn't even figure out what you said.
Again, I'm just presenting you with whatever is there.
I can't even parse that. I mean, he's referring to things he said, but he certainly didn't say it in that recording because he wasn't there. So what's he talking about? What he said?
Let me grab you the picture that I see. Just 1 second here. Did I ever make Alex? Or
This is what Wolfgang Pauli would take a comment from another would-be scientist and say, it isn't even wrong. You know, you could comment on a theory that's wrong, but if you got a comment that you can't even parse to figure out what it says, it's not even wrong. It doesn't actually say anything.
You
for
need
your
a
case,
question.
the religion, yeah, that's all good. It's all good.
Oh, there's the picture of it. How do I get that to show up?
Click on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I-
definitely Alex's picture.
Yeah, no, I know because he is links plus two. But well, he must be talking about something in the messages chat. He does show up in the messages chat
It
on
does.
Facebook. But even so, you know, let's see if I can go to messages and figure out. Is that the Saturday or the Sunday?
Sunday.
That's the Sunday one. That would be Collaborology.
Yeah.
Let's see if he's there in the Sunday thingy. Let's see, how do I find him? Search. We'll search on time. No, he's not showing up in the Sunday messages. Let me try the Saturday one. Search.
Okay, now I can move.
That's good.
Okay, so do we have a topic or are you open to questions?
Yeah, hang on a second. I'm going to take a bio break here because I didn't do a bio break this morning. But let me at least leave this so I can listen to it. I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Sam, how you been? I was in California last week. I'm actually
okay.
in Washington this week.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'll be back on the 22nd.
22nd. That's good. I was in Lafayette in Susan's house with one of the team members. House actually, yeah, and we have about 12 people there yesterday.
One of the monthlies or yeah, one of the
Monthly
quarterlies.
get together, yeah, monthly get quarterly, whatever, get together, and then there are about 7 or 8 people on a Zoom call. Basically, the talk was mindset on vitalities.
Okay, good.
Mark, I'm not sure you met Mark. Anyway, he's one of those exercise, healthy, health expert on that subject.
Nice. Is Xavier still involved?
No, really. Yeah, he is focusing with he has his own thing now with Betty Spoo. I'm not sure you met Betty Spoo or not. Anyway, one of my dear friends. Yeah, they are doing leadership training on coaching leadership arena. How's company doing? How are you guys doing?
I've got a new shift in responsibility, so it's also another level of excitement.
Sounds like fun. Travel more or travel less?
I had been going to India. Like last year, I went to India twice.
Right.
Now the team that I'm working with most closely is in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
So I'm probably going to go there at least a couple, maybe 3 times.
Okay. What's the role?
This company is about 26 years old. And 26 years ago, three-tier Java architectures were the standard in the enterprise.
Hmm.
And since then, there's been a lot of developments in continuous integration, continuous development, automated testing, serverless architectures, scalable architectures. So we have a hard time adapting that very old architecture to all of these new techniques and new tooling. So I'm basically trying to take a small subset of the product and essentially build it as if it were cloud native, cloud first, CI/CD, automated testing, just like we would be doing if we were a competitor trying to obsolete this company.
Yeah. It's called,
So if we don't show how to do this, then somebody else is going to obsolete us. So that's now what I'm focused on.
yeah, it's called fire your CTO.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
when you do that, so make sure you focus on the functionality first, because that's the ultimate goal, to make sure that you can replace the functionality with a different tool. Meaning that if you can do A, B, and C, whatever you do with it, make sure that you can still do A, B, and C, the same result that they were hoping to get.
We've been trying that. We've been trying that for the last couple of years. So now, counterintuitively, what I'm focused on right now is trying to make sure that all the quality dimensions are there. The functionality, I think, is actually simpler than the quality dimensions. So if
You
we
talk
can
about two
get,
different things, right? You talk about two different things here. So, for example, my software, which I designed about 30 years ago, is that
Mhm.
you will, I call it, you know how there's a joke that's around that you have all the excuses, so you're late for work, or you're not coming to work, whatever. So you help the employee to take away all the excuses. So, meaning that in the software perspective, you think of all the things that could go wrong and make sure that when even the employee try to make it wrong, it will not work. It will not allow them to make it wrong.
That's actually a good way to put it. Very good way to put it.
Yeah, that's how I think about it. So another
So
way
the
of saying
thing,
that, another way of saying it will be, for example, let's say your margin is 10%. So if the employee enters something that's 10.5%, it won't allow it to enter. 9.5% will not allow to go through. But if you're 10.1, 10.2, you allow it to, because it's acceptable range. So that's one perspective. And the other perspective, I'll give you a trick that I don't know if anybody ever done it before, but I did that since about 25 years ago. You know what it is? It's that, so for example, you enter a sales order, right? The two most important facts on the sales order are your total sales order amount and the zip code that you're shipping it to. If you ask for the zip code and the total sales amount before you allow them to enter your sales order, by the time they finish enter the sales order, if any of the two numbers doesn't match, you kick them out. You make them start all over again. You know what it does?
that's good for validation.
They get frustrated. So if they're not in the right mindset, you really don't want them to touch it anyway. So this is what I tell my employee and my vendor and my customer. Say, if any of my employee or my that enter the data is not on the right mindset, they're not relaxed, they're not in the focus, they're not qualified to touch my system. So this is how I kick them out. The first day I implement that, I have employed to walk out the door. I grab him back. I say, well, come and sit down right next to me. I myself, as a boss, is subjected to the same screening procedure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I eliminated almost 95% of the errors, just with that one implementation, just to share
Very
that.
good.
Yeah. I don't know of any other system in the world that does that anyway, but I did.
Hey, since you do some tech support with Barry, let me ask you a question. I'm not very familiar with these Apple AirPods. Right now, I'm on my iPhone and only the left AirPod works. I don't have the right AirPod working. So I tried putting it back in the case. I tried disconnecting. I tried turning off noise cancellation, turning it back on, but only the left one works. The right one doesn't work. It's only been for about a day and it's been charging overnight. So I could probably figure it out, but
Then
just
do a
checking to see
master
if you know.
reset. Just do a reset on the factory default reset is what I would do.
On the AirPods?
Yeah, for two things. You want to forget it on your iPhone so that you clean out the whatever the record that you store on that ID, Mac ID or whatever that is.
Yep.
And then you do a master reset as if you receive it from the factory. That's how you get it back to the normal mode. And you should take you no more than 5 minutes to do that.
Okay, so that's pushing on the button for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly how to do an AirPod master reset, factory reset. You just Google that how to master reset factory default mode iPod.
Okay. All right, let me try that.
Basically, it's like rebirth. Baby always have the perfect health, right?
But have you ever had that happen to you?
I don't use AirPod because I don't need all the, what do you call that? RF frequency in my head.
Ah. So you don't use a microphone either? I mean, a headphone?
No. The only thing I allow is this, my, what do you call that? The hearing aid. Hearing aid has a frequency, they have enough power to send the signal from left to right, and that's it. It's not a 25 feet or 50 feet Bluetooth signal. So when you're wearing a Bluetooth device, you can talk up to about 50 feet away from the device that's transmitted. So imagine the power it takes. So I walk around with my, this is why I need to, if I need a headset. Because it doesn't have any RF. I don't need RF to go through my head. I mean, this is RF already, the Apple Watch. But I don't want to get near my head. It's just two different.
There's a lot of devices already around you.
Yeah. Remember I was saying in the beginning of the conversation, it's like, I say, hi, body. I'm, without you, I'm nobody, Hi, brain. Without head, without my brain, I'm nobody. Protect it because no spare parts available.
RF is not ionizing.
I don't know. I mean,
Ionizing has to be up around ultraviolet and higher. Visible and infrared and radio frequencies are not ionizing. They will elevate an electron to a higher orbit, but they won't liberate an electron. So they won't ionize an atom. They'll only excite it.
How about this? This is your right next to your ear. Would the ionizing you?
No, because it's radio frequency. Radio frequency is not ionizing. The formula, the energy is proportional to the frequency of the, and so at radio frequencies, the energy level is below the ionization energy to kick an electron out of orbit. You got to get up to ultraviolet.
How about the home cordless phone frequency?
The which?
The one you have in the home, the headset you carry around.
2.4 gigahertz?
6.4, yeah. Spectrum.
That's, no, 2.4 gigahertz is radio frequency. It's not ionizing.
Okay.
What it can do is it can warm up. If you have enough power, which you don't, and these are very low power, but I mean, like microwaves, which are not ionizing, will warm up water. I mean, the danger is not that they're going to ionize. They'll heat up stuff. They could heat up the moisture in your brain, but they have to be relatively high power. I mean, a microwave is what, something like 600 to 1,000 watts.
1,500.
1,500 watts. These are, these are milliwatts. They don't have enough power to heat, warm. What is it? 1 watt will warm. What is it? A cc of water 1 degree per second.
Is that 1 joule or 1 erg? That's not 1 watt.
Well, a watt is a joule per second. So a joule will raise 1 cc. What is it? 1 degree? Forget what it is now. So 1 watt will warm a cc a degree per second, I think, if I get the formulas right. But of course, you don't have 1 cc. You've got, I don't know, a couple of liters up here. So, if your brain was, 1 drop of water, yeah, you could warm it. You could warm it a bit, but you're talking about a couple of liters, so it's not going to warm it any. I mean, your brain is already running 20 watts.
Wow.
Your brain is running 20 watts of energy, and that's cool. That's cool.
So when you say ionizing, could you be more specific about what's ionizing?
Right, so you have a nucleus and electrons in orbit.
Right.
Now, if you kick an electron up, it goes to a higher orbit, but then it drops back down again.
Yeah,
You kick the electron away forever. It's
okay.
gone.
Okay. So okay, got it.
You have to have enough energy. It's like kicking a rocket out of the Earth's gravity.
So evaporation, you cause the evaporation of the water instead of just warming up.
No, you would turn you would change the water into
Gas. No gas.
no. You would change the water into
Not water.
OH. You would hit
OH.
H2O. You'd have, well, no, that's not the same thing. That's kicking out the proton. That's right. It's not right.
You would send it out of the s orbital into a d orbital or a p orbital, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, if you shine light on water, you can see the water. The water will reflect back the light or transmit it, as the case may be, but it won't ionize. So ionizing means you have to kick the electron so energetically that it doesn't just get to higher orbital; it just gets to oblivion.
So it's almost like a nuclear reaction kind of reaction then.
Not nuclear. It's electron.
I mean nuclear bomb. I mean nuclear bomb reaction kind of. You change the properties of like for example H2O. There's no longer
not changing the nucleus. The nucleus is the same. It's now like a sodium ion is missing the electron. In sodium, you have 1 electron in the outermost shell.
right.
Ionize sodium, then you get Na plus.
Right.
And bond to chlorine minus. And you get sodium chloride. So you basically you get ionic bonds. It'll promote ionic bonds like sodium chloride.
So
but sodium and chlorine, it doesn't change the atom. It doesn't change the nucleus.
So ionizing is that you don't want to make sure your brain doesn't get ionized by the power that's.
In order to be ionized, you have to have like gamma rays. So if a gamma ray comes down,
Right.
or high energy, or X-rays and X-rays are ionizing. This is why they want to limit the amount of X-rays, because X-rays are ionizing.
MRI? Is MRI ionizing?
No, MRI runs at I think gigahertz frequencies, if I'm not mistaken. And the whole point is that you excite the atom and then it goes back to its ground state, and that releases a radio wave, and the radio waves basically tell you where the tissues are.
That's MRI.
It's MRI, yeah. The MRI is not ionizing; it's excitation without ionization.
X-ray does ionize. Okay, got it.
Means the electron goes to a higher orbit, but doesn't leave. It just goes to a higher orbit, then it drops back down again.
That's for X-ray.
No, that's
MRI.
That's excitation.
just excitation. So when you shine light on the wall,
Right.
pigment in the paint on the wall, the electron gets kicked to a higher level, And when it drops back down, it releases the color of the pigment.
Mm.
That's how you can tell what the constituents are, because different pigments have different substances, different elements in them.
Right.
So,
I have an MRI schedule, on the 19th, so Friday.
so on the other hand, bleaching, bleaching, you're basically changing the molecular structure. That's a little different, but that's still, it's technically that's not, well, it's known as oxidation. Yeah. So bleaching is like oxidation, but it's technically not ionizing.
What's the difference?
The difference is that the electrons are still hanging around. They connect up to they connect up to nearby molecules. You have other substances. It's not just one molecular substance. You have a mix. So if you have oxygen and other stuff, you can promote the oxidation reaction. So for example, fire is an oxidation reaction. Now the oxygen is there all the time, but if you don't heat it up enough, then the fire doesn't start. What the fire does is the heat from the fire makes things jostle enough that you can promote oxidation reactions to take place, and that's called oxidation or fire.
So let's focus on the fire. Let's say a piece of wood. The wood is, that molecule of wood or whatever that is, right? And now you add fire to it. You heat up enough energy that it becomes charcoal now. So you now become carbonization or whatever you call that.
So if you look at a flame is plasma. A plasma is a mix of ions and electrons, but they're still all hanging around together in a cloud.
Right.
So in a flame, you have a plasma, which is where the electrons have been freed from the nucleus and they're sort of floating around in the same space. And they're available to attach to something else.
So now the flame, these plasmas, they attach to the wood. Now the wood loss is...
What happens is that the free electrons allow the oxygen to bond to the carbon and get carbon dioxide.
Carbon of the wood.
The carbon, yeah, the carbon in the wood basically is sitting there as carbon. And then when you heat it up enough, the electrons in the carbon are elevated to the point where the oxygen can come in and take the place of the electrons and turn carbon into carbon dioxide. But you haven't lost the electrons, they just got rearranged.
But it's not carbon dioxide from carbon, because carbon dioxide is a gas state. It is just into a charcoal, which is a different form of carbon.
Charcoal is just pure carbon. That's just pure
carbon dioxide, right?
Carbon dioxide is a gas. But the carbon in the wood is not pure carbon. It's cellulose.
Yeah.
So you're turning cellulose into ash and carbon dioxide.
If you burn it enough, you become ash. Yeah.
But the ash is soda ash. The ash is not carbon. Ash is soda ash. They call it soda ash.
So it's two stages. You turn into charcoal, from wood to charcoal, from charcoal to ash.
No, from charcoal to carbon dioxide.
Charcoal to carbon dioxide, from charcoal.
And what's left behind is the rest of the cellulose, which becomes ash.
And what's the chemical composition of ash?
Let's ask GPT what's the chemical. Oh, it's soda ash. So I know it's got sodium in it, but let's just see what we got to find.
The wood has sodium in it then.
Yeah, because it's got salt and things. Where's Bard? Let's see, got to find Bard. Too many tabs here. What?
Yes.
A molecular structure of soda ash. I spelled it wrong. Let's see if it gets it anyway.
I didn't think there was sodium in that.
Sodium carbonate. Sodium carbonate is 2 sodium atoms, 1 carbon.
But there's no sodium in cellulose.
Sodium carbonate contains 2 sodiums, 1 carbon, and 3 oxygens.
Happy Chemical Sunday, everyone.
When wood burns, where?
It's got to be something else. Cellulose doesn't have sodium, does it, Barry?
Well, anything that's got
It
salt
doesn't.
have sodium. Let me just see. Let me ask what when wood burns, where does soda ash come from? Maybe it isn't soda ash, but I think it is. When wood burns, the production of soda ash, sodium carbonate, NaCO3, is not a typical or significant result. Okay.
Aha.
So even though they call it soda ash, it's not sodium carbonate. So residual ash from burning wood contains calcium, potassium, magnesium compounds. Sodium compounds may be present, but they're typically not in the form of sodium carbonate. So I think the term soda ash is maybe a misnomer from back before when they didn't understand molecular chemistry very well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is wood that has salt in it. Like what's that tree that grows in salt water? But most
That's what do you call that? Mango.
Mangrove.
Mango.
But most trees on ordinary land, because your soil is not salty. In fact, if it's your soil salty, it's hard to grow anything. So, except for the mangroves.
Okay, trivia question time then. Since we're going down the road of chemistry, what popular show, TV or movie, not counting documentaries, okay, actually gets relatively realistic with regard to chemistry, organic or inorganic?
Alton
Is there a
Brown.
show?
Alton Brown's cooking show. Forget the name of his cooking show, but when Alton Brown does cooking show, he explains you the kitchen chemistry behind the cooking. But I remember his name. I don't remember the name of his series.
Okay, so other than cooking shows, because I know cooking shows will talk about caramelization and these kinds of things, which is excellent. I really enjoy that. But I'm looking for other genres
on television
or movies that have actually got realistic depiction of the role
what time
of chemistry.
period, Sam?
I don't know. I'm just looking for shows.
Oh, just any show that has to do with chemistry that is
I'm looking for
realistically
something
depicted?
that. Well, I'll give you why I'm asking. Okay, I'm watching Foundation series right now, and they claim that a lot of it is based on mathematics. Okay, which is kind of a stretch. But anyway, the term mathematics and its role in the show is quite prominent. I was wondering if there was a similar show that did the same thing with chemistry or,
Well, it involves poison. So, for example, Arsenic and Old Lace was a classic movie about arsenic poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
So any kind of mystery where poisoning was part of the story, there was a couple of Sherlock Holmes stories where I think poisoning and chemistry is involved in the analysis of the cause of death. Sherlock Holmes did all these chemical experiments in a lot of his stories. So I would say the Sherlock Holmes series from time to time involves chemistry. I don't know about other mystery stories. I'm sure that if you look at almost any murder mystery series, you'll find occasional episodes involving poisoning.
Yeah, in the forensics scenes. Yes.
Yeah. In fact, there was a character in the recent Sherlock Holmes ones on PBS. There was a female character who was
your chemical influence.
It's okay. I was just gonna say Breaking Bad, but it's already we've done it to death.
Okay, yes, that's a direct answer that actually applies. Yes.
That's about methadone, not methadone. What's the real name of meth? Is it methadone?
Methamphetamines?
Methamphetamines. Yeah. So anything involving drugs But I didn't watch Breaking Bad, so I don't. Is it really
Yeah, I
about?
didn't either.
It starts off, I only watched the first beginning, but he's a teacher. So he's a chemistry teacher. So they're depicting a lot of chemistry as a teacher. And then later he has to go make the drugs.
Yeah. So anything involving drugs and toxic poisonings and stuff like that, I suppose.
I think Sam's making a good point. You don't see a lot of chemistry in cultural references that's even close to accurate. In other words, there's more misinformation on these TV shows and pop culture than there is accurate. So when people talk about nuclear power, or like you guys were talking about ionization, I personally never chemistry in high school, so I am the most ignorant person on chemistry. And as I've gotten older, I realize everything I thought I knew was 100% wrong. Like, that's not how atoms bind to each other. That's not how orbitals work. That's not how, when people use the word what's in the new age culture, like, you're gonna need to ionize the air. I owned an ionizer, and the way I thought it was working was not how it was working. Like, free radicals, you hear that all the time. You hear what's the other expression? Drink your antioxidants. Like, what is an oxidant? What is an antioxidant? Like, they don't, in other words, they're just using the confusion and ignorance to sell products, and it works great.
There was a TV series that only was like 1 or 2 seasons. It was a kind of a detective police procedural mystery where there were 2 brothers. One was the FBI investigator, and then he had a brother who was a math genius. And every week there was some kind of a crime that they were investigating, and every week the math brother would use some mathematics to solve the crime. And the name of the show was Numbers, where the E in numbers was the digit 3. And I really loved that series, but it was only on for like 1 or 2 seasons.
I remember you were telling us about that show. It's really good.
It's a very good show because the math in it was plausible. Now, the stories, of course, were fiction, and the crimes, therefore, were fabricated crimes. But solving the crime involved some kind of calculus of some sort. And the brother of the FBI agent basically was the genius who figured out how to crack the crime and solve it using applied math.
Okay,
Excuse
Barry,
me,
can
Barry,
I ask
for
you?
busting in. Oh, go ahead,
Go
Sam.
ahead. No. I was about to.
I was just trying to
so
wake
go
you
ahead
up. I'm coming in with hot energy. I'm just warning you guys. I'm coming in with, like, I just cleaned the whole house. I'm drinking coffee. I've been listening, and I'm coming in hot. So go ahead, Sam. I'm just warning you guys where my energy's at.
Okay, so Barry, you can decide how to go with this, and Josh, you can take it back on course. But since Barry, you're talking about excitation levels, I'm always, since I travel so much, I'm always questioning whether or not my dinky little cell phone, whether or not it's in airplane mode or not, is likely to shut down and crash a modern jetliner. And I think, if I were designing these things, the last thing I would do is allow somebody in seat 10C to have their, phone off of airplane mode and for that to damage the flight. I think that would be extremely bad design. So what purpose does...
That's radio frequency interference. So you're basically jamming the radio frequencies of the airplane.
But how can it be at the levels that we're using? And if so, why would they ever use communication frequencies that would be in the same range as cell frequencies?
I can answer that.
Well, go ahead.
This is a guess. I don't know that it's true, but there's many frequencies coming out of modern cell phones. There's not just the radio frequency. And then I don't know what they're using to call. They very rarely have to call in and use their radio, but if they do, they want it clear as possible on multiple channels. So I would imagine that it's just a caution to say, hey, let's cut that out of the equation so there's not any interruptions or possible interference, so that the clarity of the channel is easier. Not that they couldn't use a different channel and make that, but I don't, I don't know. Maybe you can answer, Barry. Did they make a channel for air traffic control that is different, or?
Well, let's ask Bart, because I actually don't know what frequencies they use. I mean, you wouldn't use gigahertz radio frequencies because they're basically short distance. So the radio to ground is going to be much longer radio wavelengths than the cell phone frequencies. But
Yeah, I mean, there is the FCC that's supposed to control these things, because I know when Bluetooth came out, it was the same frequency as the microwave, and then they had to change it for Europe because they have a different frequency. And in other words, I don't think we have a consortium of a global, like I went down a rabbit hole for the international court because it's in the news right now. And that's about as vague as the consortium of federal communications. I mean, it's federal, global communications consortiums that tell manufacturers what they can and cannot manufacture at what frequency.
what radio frequencies do airplanes use that conflict with cell phone radio
Read
frequency?
the chat, just paste it over.
Yeah, I'm just putting it into ChatGPT and see what.
Airline radio and cell phone frequency operate in different range.
Yep.
Airline radio frequency is use a very high frequency UHF for communication with aircraft. They typically fall in the range of 108 to 137 megahertz. These frequencies are dedicated to aviation, are distinct from those used by most commercial wireless devices.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I would have thought.
the answer is they don't actually use the same bands, but maybe this is out of abundance of caution. They just don't want you to have any radio frequencies running.
Yeah.
That's what I would venture to say. Or they're gambling with aliens that are in the high atmosphere. So it's been since 1970. I'm creating a conspiracy theory. 1970, the pilots, to keep them busy because it's on autopilot, they're just gambling with aliens out in the space.
Okay, I have another conspiracy theory. I think they don't want me on the phone with you on takeoff and you hearing, oh my God, we're going down. That's what they don't want, 50
Probably
different versions of that, hitting the media, in case of some accident.
I think you're right. Well, you were on that plane, Sam.
That's right.
I don't know. I
But
mean,
by the way, I don't know if I told you guys, but I got contacted by the DA of Portland and also the FBI office out of Portland.
About
So I
the
have to decide what to tell them.
They're following up. That's good.
Yeah.
Hopefully, didn't a Alaskan airline just have a door fall off recently?
Yeah, panel or a window went off and some kid
That's a
almost
door.
got sucked out.
It's a door, not a window. It's a
door
door.
block. There's a space for an extra emergency exit door, which you need if you have more than 190 passengers.
Yeah.
If you outfit a plane for less than 190, you don't need the extra door, so they put a plug in instead. It was the plug that blew out.
Yeah.
I think they've done such a good job for so long. Now that they're starting to not do a good job, it's we're so used to it being so safe. There's so many safety precautions.
There's only two companies making airplanes for commercial. There's Airbus and Boeing. That's it. That's almost all large airplanes are either Airbus or Boeing.
But is
I'm
this
not
considered
blaming
a large? There's the Brazilian Embraer that is the one that I normally fly.
Oh, I mean, they carry what, 20, 30 passengers?
No. Well, I don't think it's 100, but yeah, it's more than 20 or 30.
70 or 80, I think that's what I was told.
Yeah.
But they're not the big ones are called heavy.
Yeah.
They used to identify them as United Airlines 122 heavy out of Newark, meaning it was 747, and that meant that they were low. They didn't have maneuverability, and so the air traffic control had to know whether or not the airplane had maneuverability of a small aircraft or inertia of a large one and limited maneuverability.
Okay, so may I change the subject one more time?
Please.
I've actually been thinking about all the LLMs and GPTs and smart bots, and rather than feeling threatened, I'm actually getting a degree of optimism around these developments. Now, I'm not unaware of the fact that these things can be abused, but I also think that most of these AI, quote unquote, bots and GPTs and LLMs could play a huge role in eliminating idiocy and stupidity. I think that, for me, is where I'm very, very curious. Either if you're going to be let's say, a science denier or a truth denier, you've got to really work hard now to say that all these bots and all the searches that you can do on Google and all the other references you can find in encyclopedias and medical references and scientific books and whatever, that they're all wrong and that you are the only one with a path to the truth. And I think that the existence of these bots and GPTs now makes that job even harder, and it makes it ubiquitous. So you got to be a pretty special case of hypocrite if you're going to use Google search and if you're going to use Bard and you're going to use these GPTs and yet still be a science and mathematics and truth denier. So I've actually kind of reversed my degree of negativity and optimism for society because these developments now make it possible, and I'm hoping ubiquitous, that any role has now a floor to the competence that that role can tolerate. And by that, I mean, for any task or role or use case that you need a human to do, there's a minimum level of competence that a GPT can deliver, and you do not have to put up with idiocy anymore. And that's what I'm really kind of laying out there. So I don't know if that's clear or not, but I just wanted to sort of relay my renewed optimism in where we could be going. Over.
On the other hand, they're designed to be very polite, so they won't come out and say, "Oh, you're full of shit." You know, they'll basically skirt around the issue. If you present them with incorrect information, they'll try to be very gentle about telling you you're wrong. They'll try to give you correct information without criticizing you.
Yeah, if you stick with the mainstream ones, they're still PC, but there's so many experimental ones out there now, and I'm really, not so much focused on the mainstream ones. I'm looking at the ones that are actually pushing the envelope a little bit. So I think that there's much more that's possible, and regardless, even if they are PC today, that degree of PC-ness is going to get fine-tuned. Over.
Ignorant slut.
Okay, Josh, go for it.
Oh, thank you, Sam. I was wondering if you could see the hand. I pressed the button. Is it hard to see up in the corner, or is it?
Well, because of the cat's taking the center stage.
Yeah, the cat's cute. I'm glad that you're resting this morning, Sam. It's I'm with you on the optimism. I've been thinking a lot about that, and I just go back to the 2012s with the internet and how everyone talked about it being a trust economy and what it means to create trust. And when Airbnb was starting to blow up and Uber, and you can trust this because of this. And I'm thinking that the language models are going to have to build their own trust messaging, and the medium is the message. So if people trust that GPT, then it will work, and those ones will rise to the top, which is what they're trying to build. I think Sam Chen, you said the app store for GPT is people building specified GPTs that you can trust, as opposed to the whole thing that you cannot. And that's why they're trying to go in that direction. Don't trust Chat GPT in general, but trust these bots that we're building, these little applications. Those ones know. So they're trying to build layers of trust.
No, the soil is contaminated. Doesn't matter. You put it in the pots, or you put it in the bowl, or you put it in the cup, or you put it on the land. The soil is contaminated. So as far as I'm concerned, this is what I tell my people. Like, all the AI tool out there, you can only trust about 95% of it. Which means that if you have two facts stacking on top of each other, that's 10% chance of wrong. If you have 3 facts stacked on top of that, there's 15% chance of wrong. So it's like,
So I hear what you're saying, Sam, but there's people that I know that are working in the space that are taking multiple GPTs, putting them into a spreadsheet, like a
right.
Google spreadsheet, and asking them to fact check each other's information and then popping it out on the other side. And that's all happening in the back end, much like a database
So you're saying
with
that the
queries.
blind, so the blind leading the blind could be so that they're not blind?
If you have enough blind people with enough devices that are $3,500 that see the world where the other
Price
blind
doesn't
person
make a
doesn't,
difference, my friend. Price does not make a difference. The blind cannot lead the blind. Because what happens, think of this way, think of it mathematically speaking, okay? Facts number 1 has 95% accuracy. Okay, you got it? Now, think of it as a doctor. So I want to put you something that so that you get better sense of it. Is think of it like doctor number 1 only accurate for 95% of about the illness you're trying to deal with, and doctor number 2 have 95% of accurate information that he knows about. Now then, now doctor, 3 of them stacking on each other. So you're saying that because of 3 doctors talking to each other, just blindly using software logic perspective to sort out all the facts, they'll be 100% accurate?
no, Sam, I'm saying 3,000 different columns in a spreadsheet, fact checking each other will get you 99.999.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe 95, 90, better than 95% is what I would say. So.
I'm saying it like I have a database of all the medical records of all traditional Chinese medicine. It's 60 gigabytes of data.
Okay.
If I feed that into a language model and I run the queries and I get that up to a 97% accuracy, and then I build a tool to double check that, and then another tool, I'm building a 7 to 9 layer of accuracy.
Let me see if I can say this differently for you. We'll talk about blind leading the blind. If I were to use 2, I'm just going to keep it to simple 2 blind person, okay? Try to give me direction that's accurate. I'd rather have a physical evidence that's output, so I have a feedback that tells me if they're right or they're wrong one at a time. Meaning that I have to have external proof that those, 6 gigabyte or 6 terabyte worth of data they're producing the result that's desirable, is accurate, is what I want. If I use feedback system thinking perspective, I have much higher chance of increasing the accuracy of the data versus that they're trying to lead each other. Meaning that if the blind didn't get hit by a car and he was successfully crossing 3 highways, I believe you more than I believe 10,000 blind people giving me the data.
Okay, well, take away your blind analogy because that you lost me with that. Language models are not blind, they're predictive. And they're only predictive off of what they've been programmed to predict.
The reason I use blind is
you,
because it's a blind spot. So for example, when you and I are talking.
Yeah, but all humans have a blind spot in reality. There's a place in your eye you can't see.
Right.
But you can just turn your head and the blind spot goes away over here. And then you turn your head, it goes over here. And now there's no blind spot.
That's blind spot behind your head that you cannot turn to.
You can. My car can see behind its head.
So the question is, the human being, we have the reason we call it blind spot because we have no idea it existed.
No, I got it. What I'm trying to say is there are tools now where we can double check. So in other words, if you're using X-ray scans and you're using your eyes to look at it, as opposed to running it through an imaging computer that's going to look at it, who would you trust more, the computer or a person?
I don't trust any of them. What I trust is I'm going to use the external result to verify that this is accurate. Meaning if I have 10,000 people or 10,000 guys to get the data to prove some accuracy or whatever, it's less reliable to me than if I use the external data to say, okay, if the feedback is giving me the data that I need to verify. Meaning, if you say the best doctor it is, I believe you when you save 1,000 people under your brain operation. They're like, think of like what do you call that, brain surgeon. Okay, if there are 10,000 brain surgeons say that you're damn good, I will believe you less than if I take one doctor and say he has operated on 10,000 patients and all of them alive and they have recovered. External data is much more important to verify than you're just dealing with the verification process, is what I'm saying.
Right, because you don't know the process of the 10,000 data collection of those different doctors.
It doesn't matter unless you have external I can compare with. And I only believe in data. External feedback, accurate feedback. It's like some politicians say they are very rich, but then they have a lot of bankruptcy cases that's hide away that nobody knows about. That's what I'm talking about.
What system do you use for error correction?
I don't use error correction system. I use external verified data. So for example, like I was talking to Sam about, okay, the only thing that I can trust is that if my data correction system is doing the good job, then I don't have any data correction issue at all in my company. It's what I only use. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just don't understand why you think one person would be better than 10,000.
No. You can think this way. If I'm cooking a meal, right? The only way I can result that if you're a good chef, when somebody is licking your plate, your bowl, so they don't have to wash it. That's how good the food you're cooking. But if I say 10,000 cook, they say you're the best chef in the world, I believe you less than if I can see that somebody's eating your food is licking their fingers.
Yeah,
external data is much more important than.
Yeah, in your analogy, that's only for one person that licked the bowl.
As I say, I believe that that person that is a good chef, then 10,000 people say that this chef is a good chef because all the data are starting with 1 point. One data point.
Just to clarify the conversation, are we talking about statistics?
No, I'm just saying that which one is more reliable? Which data is more reliable? I say the only reliable data I trust is when I have an external result that I can see the evidence of the result is the desired result that I'm looking for, regardless of how you can claim how accurate you are.
Yeah. My company was built off of this statement, which is you can only manage what you can measure.
Yep.
And is that what you're saying?
Yep. You can only.
Okay, then we're saying the same thing because that's the tagline of my company. You can only manage what you can measure.
That's right. I now I say that unless you can measure, it doesn't exist.
Okay, we're talking the same thing. And what I'm saying is the predictive text models, it's hard to measure those accurately, but we're creating systems to measure the prediction to see if it was correct.
I understand that. I'm saying that I'm furthering what you just say is that unless you can externally measure it independently, whatever you're measuring and calculation, try to improve all you want, it doesn't do anything for me.
Right. So you need both systems.
That's right. I need a feedback.
Got it.
The key is the feedback. See, I do something, I have a feedback, I learn from the feedback, I can now come back and do it the second round to improve more what I just learned. And that's what
I'm saying is if you run it through a series of feedback loops, it will get more accurate. That's all I'm trying to say.
But you got it, except that I'm adding one subscript to it, which is unless the data is externally tied, not just internally. What I'm saying is that if you have 20 AI systems that they all help each other, that's to me. You need to be.
So I think I got lost when I said a Google spreadsheet. I mean an external area to tie all of those feedback loops together.
That's right.
So that's what I was trying to say is unless you have an external area like a spreadsheet outside of the system. And so what I'm seeing in computing right now is there's a lot of digital information that needs to go back to the real world in the analog, right, and then back to the digital, and then back to the analog, and then back to the digital, and then back to the analog.
You got it.
Okay, we're on the same page. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Yeah. I mean, the lack of a better example I give is don't ask guy that doesn't have kids to teach you how to raise your kids because you have no external feedback.
Well, it's theory versus practice.
Yeah, exactly right. So
And
going back to what Sam was saying, I'm interested in that because for me, in our society, in a community that we are here, there's a lot of system that built in that for people that's, whatever you want to call that, not as smart, they will get penalized. They will get rewarded differently than the people that are smarter.
yeah, I think Charlie Munger was famous for saying, "Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome."
Yeah, and I'm saying that AI too is just adding one more thing. This doesn't. I would say it will not increase. Let me put it this way: there are so many people out there that they have no idea what AI is and don't care to know, and they don't have an idea what it is, and they don't care to learn, or they don't want
I'm
to.
not interested in the people that don't know. I'm interested in the people that do know. And there's a
Agreed.
company called Deep South that's creating as close of a replication in tensors and in the models to the human brain itself. And those are the type of systems that once they're created, I want those to give the feedback on top of a human, on top of a computer system, on top of Bard, on top of Alpaca, on top of, you name it, all the language models that are out there, Orca, so on and so forth. If those models are using each other to help the pathway predict better and correcting those errors in real time, like Sam said, I'm getting very optimistic that we could create trust systems, and this world of misinformation could start to go away.
So I agree that if the AI is created, allow us to have a tool that allow us to see things clearly, easily, and more efficiently, sort out the garbage from the good stuff. And that's the efficiency of that, it goes up. Yeah, I agree with that.
But I'm saying that feedback loop of it's like a pile of tons of information that it's trying to process. But after it processes that, it's say 80% accuracy, then take that and that data column, create properties for that column, put that into another database, and then feed that through the system. And if that feedback loop is created properly, it'll create less errors. If it's improper, it'll create more errors. Go ahead, Sam.
So I think this tack of reasoning, I think, is interesting to me because I want to draw a distinction. I think that when you have a series of steps, all in series, i.e. one after another, then what Sam is saying is true. 95% probability in each of them creates just a very low probability result at the end. However, there's a different way to arrange these things, right? So let's say we're all human, we're all imperfect, but all of us working together in parallel can, in some cases, be better than any specific individual. That's basically the key to collaboration, right? So science is an example of that. And truth in reporting potentially could be another example of that. So in other words, if we have ways to, let's say, triangulate on truth, where I'm saying, okay, it's got to be, within that parallax, within a probability of 95%, and somebody else, way over there says, okay, it's also 95%, but they're looking at the object from a different angle. Now, all of a sudden, both of those 95% observations result in a much tighter geolocation. Now, if you add a third observer, a third sensor, also going at 95 percentile, you further shrink the search space you need in order to locate that thing that you're looking for, okay? So it's not necessarily the case that all of these different transformers or reasoners operate, quote unquote, in serial fashion. The verifiers that Josh is talking about can work that way. In fact, that's how they're architected today. But there are ways to actually build in some redundancy and some error correction. So like, for example, white boxes in Google and Amazon AWS, they're only, 99 point whatever % reliable. But you get 10,000 of them together with the right protocols for how you fail over, then the thing reaches 6 nines. That's the famous, number that Amazon claims, 99.9999% reliability. So I think there's different ways to look at imprecision and how you organize imprecision to come up with better architectures and better results.
I have a better way to explain this. Now that you say this, it helps me to explain it better. Okay. 3 theoretical physicists.
This sounds like a joke.
Come out with the facts. Okay. Would you you think that is more accurate than one theoretical physics working with what do you call that? The non-theoretical physics is, what do you call that? The physical.
The layman.
The external result, the one that actually do the experiment, actually created the experiment and proved that it is correct. So 3 theoretical physics versus 1 theoretical physics with 1 non-theoretical physics, and they collaborate. Which data would you be more accurate, we think?
The second, but that's an example of the triangulation that I'm talking about.
But the triangulation have to be, that's why I say keep going back. You need to have a physical evidence or nature's evidence to collaborate that. Otherwise, you can have 10,000 theoretical physicists come up with the data that you claim there's 99.7. I don't believe you. Is what I'm saying.
Well, Einstein, by the way, has a quote on this, right? He doesn't care what 10,000 people say, so long as, even one person is correct.
That's right.
The one person, should be more believable than 10,000 people who are not experts in the field, right?
Yeah, so thank you for helping me to sort that out. So now I use a theoretical physicist, 10,000 of them.
So I think we're both making our points and they're both being refined. I do think that there's still a point about how you organize imprecise knowledge to actually make progress and come up with better results.
How you organize is important as long as you have the second case I'm talking about.
The verification, the observation.
If you only secluded the same group of people that you're right, everybody's right, and they're in the same mindset, that's where the blind spot comes in.
Now, if you're talking about theoretical physics, the observation you're looking for could be astronomically expensive. So you may need a lot of those theoretical physicists while you take the decades and decades required to build that instrument that can actually sense what it is you're predicting.
Of course, when I'm saying that, I disregard the cost of building that experiment.
Yeah. So anyway, since I asked the question, it was motivated by just this series that I've been spending my idle time watching, which is Foundation series. And I've referred to it multiple times. I'm still curious how many people have watched the series.
This is on Apple?
This is on Apple TV, yeah.
Yeah, I tried to watch it. It was too boring. It didn't hook me. But I would rather read the books. I think the books are
read
better.
the books. The books are not great in the style of writing, but the books introduce very, very cool ideas. So it's great from an idea provocation standpoint, but I wouldn't say he's a great writer.
Lately, I'm sorry. Lately, I've been using ChatGPT to help me to get all the key points that I don't have time to watch. So help me to create a prompt about this Foundation series that it will make sense.
I don't need to help you. You can go to the ChatGPT store. There's one for Foundation series. I guarantee it, Sam.
There's only one Foundation series and they know exactly what the hell this is?
Yeah, it's only been made on Apple TV. I don't think there's ever been an attempt to make it ever before.
So,
well, isn't the premise you're in is it another world, or it's not Earth, right? It's a different world.
No, it's a galaxy 10,000 years from now.
A galaxy 10,000 years from now, and the AI is sort of already taken way over, and then they're getting mathematicians.
No, surprisingly, this is the extension of his robot universe. Okay, so this is after the robot wars, and robots were, essentially destroyed by the humans, except for one, by the way. And so the human Cleonic dynasty rules the entire galaxy, trillions of people. But this mathematician, because he's developed a new form of mathematics, where this mathematics is based on macro behavior of humanity. And this macro behavior means that he cannot predict what happens to an individual, but he can actually predict what happens to societies and civilizations. And he predicts kind of this dark ages, which is going to last 20,000 years. And his attempt is to try and do what he can to minimize the duration of the dark ages. That's the premise of the book and of the series. So anyway, I think it's an interesting adaptation.
In my understanding of how everything works is that if we build these systems properly, it will tell us where we've gone wrong in our thinking from Babylonian times. Like Barry goes back to the laws of Hammurabi. If it scraps the entire model of everything we believe in reality and tries to teach us a new reality, the world's going to get very interesting 10 years from now.
Yeah. I'm not clear that that's where it's headed, but
I'm not clear either, but it's a possibility if done right. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of smart people, and there's always one person in the room that says, okay, you guys are going off of these superposed ideas, these models, but they're inaccurate. And everyone pushes that person out of the group because they're pushing every idea out. And it's those people that if they work hard enough on their thinking and can convince the world, they change the world views. And I think these language models will be able to do that in split second. With not only changing it, but writing 15 movies that are superseded and they're written accurately for each person's view of the world. So it's taking into account the individualistic understanding of reality for Sam, for Barry, for me, for you, Sam Chan. It's writing a movie that will explain to you in the way you think where your thinking is wrong. And then Barry's thinking is right where Sam's is wrong. And mine is right. And it tells me that this is where I'm wrong. And then it puts us all on the same page, and it's the perfect collaborology tool. It's better than a cult leader.
That would be a version of Mentor, which I've been hoping to see.
Yes.
Well, on the same subject about survival, a friend of mine from China just sent me a text this morning about Mark Zuckerberg is reportedly rebuilding a sprawling $100 million Hawaii compound, complete with an underground bunker and its own food and energy sources. In the secret,
that was reported about a month ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Is he expecting the world to come soon and spare him in Hawaii in his underground bunker?
So she was asking me, why does he build a bunker in Hawaii? I say, my answer to her was, when somebody has too much money and think a lot, they hallucinate.
Well, he may not be wrong about the end of the world coming. There's a lot of scientists who think that our civilization is on the verge of collapse. The only question is, how much longer will we hang on without falling over the edge of the cliff?
And oh, by the way, if I were Zuckerberg, I'd be doing it in more than one place. Maui would not be the only place I'd be doing this. If I had his billions.
Yeah, you guys are triggering me. I was just on a phone call with a lady from Maui, and she was talking about what happened after that big fire in Lanai. And they're convinced, the people on the island, some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but it was not only planned, but there was arguments 4 months before that fire to build a 15-minute city in Lanai, and people were fighting against it, and they were getting nowhere. And then the fire happened. So it's pretty suspect. That fire was not ever investigated properly, and it's out of the news now.
What's a 15-minute city?
You can ask ChatGPT; it'll tell you.
Everything's within 15 minutes.
Oh, that you can get from here to there in 15 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a restructuring of the city itself, and they're trying to restructure a lot of cities into 15 minutes. They're trying to control the ability for people to go in and out of a city. So, like, they're doing this a lot in Great Britain. They're changing who can leave and not leave a city. It's much like what they've done. Maybe you can enlighten us, Sam Chan, and places in China where if your credit scores aren't good, you can't get on the train.
Well, basically, is you have the facial recognition on you wherever you go, based on your face as well as your electronic device. It can track you exactly what it was. The real life story that I know of was a friend of mine was driving distance, and she was speeding in one section of the highway. And by the time she stopped, she got a text message that she needed to pay that fine because she was speeding in one section of the highway. And that's exactly like, wow.
Yeah, it was the downhill section.
No human needed. No human needed to catch you.
It gets you on that downhill.
There's a route that I take to the community center that has a downhill section. And if I coast, I see the speed limit. If I coast the downhill section.
Nice. Yeah, they installed a lot of cameras during COVID in cities in England when everyone was in lockdown. That was a good opportunity to stick up more cameras.
To protect the innocent.
To protect us all. My friend told me the other day the word government, the ment of government is Latin for mind. So if you take out the word ment and you put in the word mind, govern mind, that's the job of the governed mind, is to govern our minds.
So when you take a course in civics or social studies, that's the whole point, is to inculcate you into the philosophy of the society, the government.
So the only thing that's worse than doing that is not doing it, because now we've got an entire strata of kids and young adults who didn't have civics classes or sociology classes or citizens classes.
Well,
Three generations.
There ought to be comparative civics, so you can compare civics under different capitalism and socialism and Marxism and, I don't know, hedonism, greedism. So you can compare the different economic and political models, democracy.
I mean, just look at how many Republicans don't even know the basics about the Constitution.
Most of them don't.
And they're being quoted in a stupid, mainstream media.
Why is the two-party
Why do we give them
system still
airtime?
around?
Why do we give them airtime?
Sam, why do we have a two-party system?
Because we don't have parliaments. We don't have.
And why don't we have parliaments?
That because when they set it up, when they set up the republic in whatever 1775 or whenever they set it up, they didn't arrange for proportional representation.
And why? Because it's easier to control?
I don't know why. All I know is that we ended up with a non-parliamentary model, like a lot of European countries do have. And as a result, now there doesn't have to be a two-party system, but the point is that you don't have proportional representation, so it's winner take all. And that basically forces you into a two-party model, because there's one in power and one opposition. And the one opposition has the best chance of throwing out the one in power. In a parliamentary system, you really can't overthrow the majority party. There's always going to be a majority.
So the winner take all model was good until it created monopolies.
Or what you end up with is a monopoly and one opposition, the loyal opposition. So you end up with two parties, and they kind of alternate, not necessarily equal duty cycle, but as soon as the one in power really screws up bad enough, then the other one gets in power for a cycle, half a cycle.
Right.
I mean, look at what country was it that, was it Hungary, or I don't remember, one of the small countries in Europe was in that situation where they had a parliamentary system and they couldn't form a government. No, the party that had the plurality didn't have enough allies in the other minority parties to form a government. Or maybe
I think from what I know is the biggest lie or the biggest con on the American people is that you have a choice. So if you go to the grocery store and you're buying different crackers, or let's just say potato chips, and you see all these different brands and different colors and different choices, but if you flip over the package, you see 3 companies own 90% of all the brands that are on the shelf.
Right.
So it's making you think you have a choice between companies because of these sub-brandings but they're not. And it's the same thing with politicians. You think you have a choice of all these different politicians, but at some point you realize they're controlled by two different, actually one, because the Republicans and Democrats, after they're done playing their theater game, they go have drinks with each other.
There's only
And they
two.
go to each other's bar mitzvahs, and they go to each other's weddings, and they go to each other's functions, and they go to each other's country clubs, and they sit and laugh about how they fooled each other. They fooled the American people. It's the funniest thing to them that we're also stupid to think that they're separate, but they're not. They're the same people with the same agenda.
There's only two brands of ketchup. And one of them is catsup. There's Heinz
I'm
ketchup.
saying the illusion of control is the biggest con. The illusion of freedom in America is the biggest con.
Yeah. I certainly don't feel. Actually, there's a Stanford professor who doesn't think we have any free will at all. He has a book out claiming that free will is a fantasy that doesn't exist.
I've seen that taught. Yep, in academic, there's a lot of. I mean, the whole Ayn Rand thing, like the idea of objective epistemological understanding, is that you don't have freedom, even though they're claiming that you do. You don't.
It's an illusion.
It's an illusion. In other words, you have the freedom to do whatever you want until I tell you can't do it.
I mean, if you choose between Heinz ketchup and the other brand, which is, what's the name of the other brand? I forget, Del Monte or something. When you pour it out of the container, it's molecularly the same stuff.
Yep. I worked in manufacturing for the cosmetic industry. I went to the plant and saw the exact same vat of stuff put into 9 different labeled bottles, right, saying it's 9 different things. Yeah. Same thing with the packaging industry for the food and beverage. It's the exact same drink labeled different, and it's in the cans, in the bags of, it's the same stuff labeled different. It's a con. But I'm saying that should be illegal. There should be somebody saying you cannot put the exact same thing in 2 different bags, but it's not illegal. It's totally fine.
The store brand, where I go to the Stop and Shop, the store brand is the same stuff as the regular brand, except it's a little bit cheaper. And
let's look at a simple case on the ketchup, right? Once you try to open the 3rd factory, the build ketchup number 3, and see what happened.
Well, it's different packaging sometimes. That's the difference. And that is a difference, but it's not a different ingredient.
It had a shape of a bottle that was distinct from the shape of the Pepsi bottle. People love the shape of the Coke bottle.
I'm just saying this metaphor transcended into every aspect of society. Yeah. It's fun to live in a society with 50 different ketchups at the store, but you go in other parts of the world, they've got one brand. It's
called generic ketchup.
Yeah.
Generic
water. But you have
water.
the freedom to make your own ketchup at home in those other places because the tomatoes are cheap enough to do that.
Yeah, of course you can add seasoning to it. You can change the seasonings, but it's like putting sprinkles on your ice cream and calling it a different flavor of ice cream.
Yeah. When I went to Ecuador, there was a thing that was always on the table at every restaurant, and it's these tree tomatoes that grow in the Amazon, and it was delicious. Everyone had their different little formula of spicing it, but it was always on the table. It didn't come out of a bottle. It came off a tree, and it was really nice to have on the table with every meal.
Think about milk. I mean, milk comes out of a cow, right? So you have the milk that comes out of the cow, and then you've got 4 different brands of milk, in the grocery store. They're all the same milk. They're the same, came out of the same cow.
Yeah.
But they would advertise, and the real difference is, back in the old days, is that you had home delivery. You had, the milk truck came around. And so you went with the brand that had the best delivery schedule for your neighborhood.
Well, I'm just saying, if I follow politics back to who's funding the super PACs, if I go to opensecrets.org, it's the same people funding all these different candidates.
Milk from contented cows, right? Yes, we have contented cows. I wouldn't want milk from a discontented cow.
I'm just saying the fact that we all argue over something that is the same doesn't make any sense to me. It's illogical. It's not systems thinking. It's ridiculous.
Well, I wouldn't buy Hunt's ketchup because I don't like the Hunt brothers because they're assholes, right? So I'll go with Heinz because Heinz. John Kerry was married to a Heinz. He was married to the Heinz heiress. And so I would buy Heinz ketchup and not Hunt's because Hunt's were from Texas and they were assholes.
Right. It's all emotional. We always make those emotional decisions on brands.
And I don't want
That's
I don't want to buy pills from the Sackler company.
right. I don't want to search on Google. I'm going to search on DuckDuckGo because Google is awful. But then you look at DuckDuckGo's servers. Oh, wait, they're on Google's cloud server. Ah.
You figured it out.
I'm just saying it's just to me it's like a big game of as long as they're arguing, they're not in control, but they think they're in control because they have the ability to argue.
Take the position and defend it.
I think we just need to take what Buckminster Fuller said is build a system that's better. And that's what I'm hearing you say, Sam Chan, is I don't care how many people are telling me it's better. If 10,000 people tell me it's better, I'm going to trust the one person that I can verify that it actually is better for me. That's what I heard you say. Is that?
Thank you.
Build a better
Yeah.
technocracy, a technocracy. I mean, look at the European Space Agency, which is a technocracy. They put up, together with NASA, the James Webb Telescope. That was a brilliant achievement of a technocracy. And I look at the technocracies, the Federal Reserve is a technocracy, NASA is a technocracy, the National Weather Service is a technocracy, and they're staffed by people who are world-class competent in their discipline.
Yep.
I want world-class competent people, and that's a technocracy. You don't elect who's going to be in NASA. Now, George Santos is not elected to NASA. You wouldn't want him. You want to hire people who know how to build a rocket that successfully gets into space and doesn't blow up.
I agree. I don't like you. I personally don't like unions. I'm not a fan of a union. At the same time, I understand the importance and the need for it. When you have a corporation that is bleeding the employees dry, they have the right to come together and create more power. But that power corrupts.
Starbucks is a big deal about unionizing different Starbucks outlets in different cities. Coffee is coffee. What the hell's the deal? It's a cup of coffee. It used to be a commodity.
Yeah, but when a cup of coffee becomes a real estate company, and when that real estate company sells shares of the real estate, meaning you can buy a coffee card for $20 to buy coffee at different places. And if you leave money on that card after 3 months, it goes back into their bank. So now they're making millions of dollars for free off of the ignorance of the people that want to buy their coffee bucks.
Yeah, there's some tens of billions of dollars in these prepaid cards that never get used.
But it's not a coffee company. It's a mommy brand for a place to get away. It's Disneyland for moms. That's what Starbucks is. The place to meet with your mommy friends and to buy your fancy croissants that are way overpriced. $7 for a thing that you can get from Costco for 50 cents. But looks pretty. It's an experience, not a commodity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody put a gun in your head to tell you to go there, okay? You go there because it was fun, it was a perfect spot for you. It served what you need, and the price is reasonable, all that stuff. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a choice.
Yeah, it's a great choice. And I'm saying that's what I love about America. I love capitalism. I love the idea that you have multiple experiences and you can go to Pete's Coffee, you can go to Starbucks. You can go, for me, I went to the bakery, the Dominican bakery that charged me 75 cents, and they put way too much sugar and way too much milk to save their coffee so it could stretch longer and they could charge cheaper prices in a really generic cup. And it was my favorite coffee.
Mocha, sweet mocha.
Sure, it was super sweet, super
Sweet
milky. Because they put less coffee in the cup and more sugar and milk, they stretched out their dollar, and instead of paying $4 for a cup of coffee, I was paying 75 cents.
That's the market for you. That's your choice.
Isn't sugar
That's my choice. I love that market. Exactly.
sugar and milk more
Like that's,
expensive?
I mean, tell me, Sam Chen, is China more capitalistic than other countries? Because it seems to me from the outside looking in that there's a lot of choices.
Let me tell you this differently so that you can get a sense of what it is. When I go to the world's one of the top tourist places like Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, do you know how many places I can buy coffee from?
One.
None.
None.
None. You know, when I go to like the world famous tourist places in China, like the Great Wall of China, how many places I can buy coffee and everything else like gifts and drinks and even instant noodles and hard boiled egg and all that stuff. How many places I can buy?
Dozens.
You're not even close, my friend.
Hundreds.
Hundreds. Hundreds. So
That's like
tell me-
India. Yeah.
So tell me which one is more capitalist, which one is less capitalist?
That's what I'm saying. To me, it seems that China's a lot more capitalist.
From that sense, yes. For the number of stores you can buy coffee from in the tourist places, it's
early stage capitalism, right? We are in late stage capitalism, where
Correct.
the quote unquote optimization has created an escalator for profits to one or two or three very small number of final destinations, i.e. big corporations. But early stage capitalism, is where, hey, we think everybody's got an opportunity. And yet they're making $10, $15 a day, $20 a day. That's not the dream of capitalism.
Depends.
Yeah,
how do we-
It depends on whose dream is it, the worker's dream or the boss dream, the consumer's dream.
I think in America, everybody thinks they're the boss. The workers think they're the boss. No one knows who the boss is because there's this illusion that anyone can be the boss.
Let me give you another perspective of capitalism in China. A lot of movies you can watch, like a small section of the popular movie. They take the best part of the cliffhanger and put it on Facebook, right? I've been watching that the last 3 months. Same, what do you call that? Same logic, same setup, same everything. There are about 10 different versions of it, of the same thing. So think of it like Harry Potter show. There are 10 different versions of Harry Potter show, like not just one. Like when they see this is successful, okay, Phantom of the Opera, they have 10 different versions of it. Now 10 different companies make it.
And how do you talk about it with your friends if you all watch 10 different ones?
Well, from my perspective, I see the big picture. It's like, okay, what is the country trying to send a message and how do they want to brainwash the citizen? And they come up with this is the structure I want. Okay, go at it.
Yeah. Well, I think what you just said, Sam Han, about the late stage capitalism, how do we move from late stage back into early stage?
I don't think that's the right model. I think that we don't need to move towards early stage capitalism. I think what we need to move, in my opinion, and I've been saying this for about 7 or 8 years, is I think we need to shift from a transaction-based economy to a relationship and network-based economy. See, a
Like Charles
transaction
Eisenstein?
in theory, like who?
Charles Eisenstein that wrote the book on sacred capitalism, or I forgot what it's called, something to that
I know.
extent.
I've seen a couple of his. I've not actually read his books. I don't know if he uses these terms, but for me, it's a relationship which, if you sort of look at all relationships in toto, then that is a network. And if you look at the way a network can flow goods, ideas, support, money, whatever, a network has dynamism, has some behavior, has characteristics that you can stabilize, whereas transactions, almost by their very definition, have no memory. If I buy a coffee from Starbucks today, tomorrow, in theory, they know nothing about what I did yesterday. It's all about the next $7. It's all about the next coffee, other than, okay, so now they've added these loyalty things, but still, it's a very crude attempt at a relationship, okay? But even the existence of loyalty cards and rewards miles and Amex points and, you know, all these bank cards, relationships, that's a beginning of a realization that relationship adds, they think it adds to the value of transactions. It actually is more important than transactions in my view. See, to me, the transaction that has a fixed price is an artificially stupid model for how transactions should take place. The fact that, you know, when I'm in 20-degree weather and I need a set of boots because my last pair of boots cracked in the ice, okay? To me, that's a much more valuable commodity in sub-zero conditions than if they were on some discount rack in the middle of summer, right? So the value it has to me and to the source is artificial. And it's artificial because they have to price it at a single price point, and yet it has to apply to all potential buyers who have different scenarios and needs. So my view is pricing, because of our, you know, lack of sophistication around building networks and understanding the value of flow of networks, has had this fixed point arbitrariness to it. Just like, let's say, minimum wage, $15, $7.25, whatever it is. It's arbitrary. You know, you just set it, but it doesn't matter whether you're a cook or whether you're a waste disposal manager or you're a table busser. You know, they just have to say $7.25. Why? What is that basis? If there's any basis whatsoever, it's got to be, oh, well, you got to be able to, you know, survive and make a living. But today, you can't do that. You have to have at least 3, it seems, minimum wage jobs for you to even afford living in any city these days. So all these points of arbitrariness don't take into account what is needed to actually live a life. And I think some transaction-based economies are old. We need to evolve beyond them. And I think relationship-based economies, I think, are the next level up. Over.
Thank you for explaining this. So you have Nordstrom versus Target when you buy your clothes. Have you been to Nordstrom? Have you been to
I think 20 or 30 years ago I did, yes.
Yeah, that's you know, that's relationship based. They know you, they invite you to sit down and they talk to you, and then they have a conversation with you before they sell you something to wear.
Okay, that didn't happen. That didn't happen way back when I went to Nordstrom in the 70s or 80s.
That's what they're famous for. That's what they're famous for.
I just walked in and just bought something off the rack, and it was no different than Macy's for me back then.
Wait, you go back a second time, a third time, a fourth time?
I've been there at least 3 times, yes.
Sam forgot to flirt with the lady at the shopping place.
Maybe because they took a look at the clothes that I was wearing and said, well, let's just let this person pick something off the rack.
If I go into Sephora, they'll have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I admit that there may be special cases of companies that are recognizing this. I'm saying to build an economy, I think it's much better to do it in a network relationship model than a transaction-based model. Over.
Thank you.
What
for
I hear
doing
you,
that.
yeah, what I hear you say, Sam, is like I went to the bazaar in Istanbul, and also, you know, the outdoor market in Cairo, and it's all relation based over there. you sit down, you have a cup of tea, you talk about the shirt you want, you talk about the rug you want, you talk about the artifact you want, whatever it is you're buying. I was a tourist, so they were selling me those things. But the ability, at least what I've noticed in poor parts of America, aka the ghetto, the poor parts of the Bronx, the poor parts of Brooklyn, that relationship-based economy does exist, but not in the mall, not in, Times Square, not in other parts of America. So what is that? Yeah, what is that?
So that's a good point. Okay, so imagine, and most of us will have to use our imagination for this. Imagine we used to live in these small little communities called villages, right? Now, the characterization that is most different than today is in villages, people know each other.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So if I don't have my money and I need a bao bun and somebody knows me and says, oh yeah, that person's good for the bao bun, he'll bring extra next day or next week. There's a level of trust, there's a relationship there. And I don't have to go hungry. Today, you can find very few businesses that actually will think that way. And oh, by the way, the employees who do think that way and go out of their way to support somebody who is hungry or whatever, they get written up because this is, the special case. This is something extraordinary because it's not ordinary. And yet, if you have a functioning society, you wouldn't let people go hungry just because they didn't have their $3.50 for a bao bun.
Socialism.
Well, isn't this the whole basis of that movie, It's a Wonderful Life?
Yeah.
The
I haven't seen
entire
it.
premise was what we're talking about, is the potter fields, the guy who doesn't care about people. This is what I'm building. And then the other guy, Mr. Bailey's dad, he's saying, you pay back when you can. Let's start a savings and loan. Let's start a trust that we trust that you're going to work hard and pay it back. And you can miss a payment here, miss a payment there. We'll extend the loan longer. That like, I think the real thing is a debt-based economy versus not a debt-based economy. That's what I've seen in my lifetime, is that we got so good at loan sharking and moving that loan sharking around and stealing from the loan sharks. It all turned into mafia corruption as opposed to a real economy based off of not just transactions, but transactions at a price that people can afford.
Well, let's take the basic definition of an economy, right? Today, if I was to think about how I would define capitalism, it's how I or some small number of smart entrepreneurs, and I'm going to be smarter than everybody else. And if I am, then I'm going to get more profit than anybody else. Okay. That seems to be the way we measure capitalist entities like corporations or entrepreneurs, right? That's what we worship. We worship billionaires. We worship high dividend companies, high appreciating companies. That's the God that, capitalism reveres. It's not whether or not society and its members are healthy. I would rather define an economy based on whether the society and its members are healthy and thriving and low stress or reasonably stressed and contributing. Okay, but that is nowhere in the definition of capitalism. None.
But that's the game that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are doing by buying large shares in all of these Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies and pretending it's a game. They pretend to care about social, environmental, what's the ESG, environmental, social, whatever the G stands for. They're pretending to care about relationships, but really they're not.
It's a good way to market. It's a good way to market themselves.
But what I'm hearing you say, Sam, is we need an economy that actually cares, not the one that pretends to care.
Yeah, and we could easily tell, right? How many people are sleeping in the streets in sub-zero temperatures? Let's look at that number. Let's look at how many people have to go on a morning to a free food bank because they can't eat otherwise.
Well, how many kids that get asked what they want to be when they grow up say a social worker?
Exactly. It's good. That's another good one. right?
This is what I'm having problem with it. When you make a generalization about something like this, it's not fair, because just like the three theoretical physicists, they have blind spot. Every case is different. They can't, whatever they did created that situation to where so you need to focus on one person at a time to figure out what's wrong with them, what causes them to lose the home, sleeping in the
But
street.
we need hundreds of people individually one-on-one working with one person at a time to get that data.
Well, once you get
And
about
you
10
will
people,
still see patterns. You will still see patterns that are
Yeah.
systemic to society.
yeah.
Minimum wage, for example, is a systemic cause for a lot of this. The fact that minimum wage doesn't change for decades.
But don't you
How does
think
that make
minimum
sense?
wage was created as a fallback for not educating the children?
No, I think it was created as a justification for businesses. Hey, I'm meeting my results. Get off my back.
That was exactly my point. You just illustrated it perfectly. Is
Yeah.
I can pay this person this minimum, and I don't need to train them on anything. I don't have any responsibility to train them, and the person that educated them has no responsibility to educate them.
Yeah.
When you run
Okay,
the
so
business and you have your cash flow problem, then you can come and explain to me why you pay somebody minimum wage.
I don't understand what you're saying,
I
Sam.
understand that argument. I do. I really do understand that argument. But should we be creating businesses and jobs where people who have those jobs and are in theory working full time are not able to meet their needs for housing, food, clothing, warmth? Is that a society we will live in?
It's a choice. Again, you don't have to work.
No, it's not a choice. It's a choice of whether we want that society as a society. It's now not an individual choice, because if the system exists, yes, you're right. It's an individual choice. But the fact that it's an individual choice is an indication of how lousy a society we are.
Okay, let's go back to China's capitalism. Okay, they have hundreds of stores at the Great Wall of China. Okay, do they think they have minimum wage over there? That's what their entrepreneurship is about.
How many of them can afford their a family home?
Well, they do. I mean, at least 80%.
No, not from what I hear. Many of them have to save for generations to be able to buy a home, like in Hong Kong, right? Some save 3 or 4 generations to be able to buy an apartment in one of the high rises in Hong Kong. You can't buy it just in a single lifetime.
How many homes is one data point? I'm saying about how many people are sleeping on the street.
In China?
Yeah,
Yeah,
homeless
quite
people
a few,
is
right?
way less than homeless people in the US.
Not from what I saw. There's a lot of beggars in China and the places I went
Okay,
to.
let's look at ChatGPT about homeless people population in China versus US.
Well,
But
Do you
China's
think we
better
have
at
good data
creating
representation?
Yeah, you can take a closet in China and put 6 people in there. Like
That's right.
they're a little bit more practical, a little bit more.
Right.
Hey, I can.
And for 1 billion people out in the rural countryside, do you think there's actually good data being collected on those?
But the difference is here. I've been with homeless people. I've been homeless. I've been there. The difference is in China, they have a path out, meaning, like you said, 4 generations. They're sleeping to go to work. Whereas in America, they're sleeping to take, sleeping off the drugs that they took. And the reason they're taking drugs is to escape from the reality that you're living in a tent and people want to rape you and people want to steal from you. I'm saying if you ever go live with homeless people for 4 days, they're literally being attacked about 30 to 40 times a day. And they're attacked by the other homeless people, they're attacked by the people in the neighborhood, and they're attacked by the police officers. And when I say attacked, I mean you stand in one spot, someone's going to come up to you and assault you, whether it's verbal
isn't
or
that
physical.
a systemic issue? Aren't there systemic reasons why that is the case?
The reasons, when you talk to these people, the reason is they couldn't get along with their family unit, whether it be their nuclear family or whoever, because of whatever mental problems they had at that time. And because they couldn't solve that conflict resolution, they ran away from their problems instead of facing them.
And how come they don't
Or
have
they-
this problem in Nicaragua, in other South American countries as well as China?
Because the family units are able to solve that conflict resolution.
So that's a systemic problem, like what Sam was saying.
Yeah.
Because we have the
Eh,
choice, we have the freedom to run away.
Well, it's a cultural problem too, because if you go to Nicaragua, you're probably going to go to church with these people in your neighborhood over and over again. It's a very strong religious community in those areas.
America used
It's
to
a-
be doing that as well in the beginning of
They used to, but not anymore.
the late stages of homelessness.
Late stage of capitalism. I mean, when you look at America, it was a huge thing in 82 or 83 when Ronald Reagan's administration decided to cut certain social programs.
To shut down the mental hospital.
Yeah, when I was growing up, there wasn't that many homeless people from 78 to 82 as a little kid. And then from 85 to 90, it was quite a different world out there on the streets.
Thank you, Barry.
You're welcome.
You put something in the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in late stages of Western civilization.
Yeah, correct.
The question is, when will it collapse and be supplanted by something more enlightened? Not in my lifetime. I'm going to turn 79 in a couple of days.
Well, I think we're in early stages of the civilization that Sam Han is talking about. I think we're in early stages of a rebirth of how we transfer goods and services to each other, a rebirth of distribution networks. The boats that are in the ocean will not be the same boats 20 years from now. The roads will not be the same roads, so on and so forth.
All right, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, ding dong.
Just let me know you're done.
I'll leave this as a starting point for the next conversation. I'm going to encapsulate it in a number of questions, but thank you very much for all of this.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate coming. I like being back here. Okay. I missed it for the last several weeks.
See you next week.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Saving the chat.